We have finally managed to get our hands on a Sealine C330. It's been difficult because Hansa, rather selfishly, have been selling them all. But we've got one here just before it makes its UK debut at the Southampton Boat Show. Now, it's based on the S330. There's one here for reference. And the idea being that the internal accommodation is moved up onto the main deck, so that's where your saloon is, and below decks is dedicated to your sleeping area. On board there's a pair of Volvo Penta D3220s. The S330 was a real hoot to drive out on the water. Hopefully this one will be no different. Let's see what she can do.
One thing that the yard would not have wanted to do when transforming the S330 to the C330 would be to dilute the driving experience. The S330 is fantastic fun to drive out in the water, and thankfully that hasn't happened. It's still really great fun to drive. Same engines as the S330 I tested, D3220, and they can be quite noisy on the open back sports cruisers, but thankfully because of the deck layout on this boat where you have the cockpit doors, the engines are shut out there, behind the doors, beneath the floor, much better sound readings on this boat. But that hasn't diluted the driving experience at all. She's still nice and powerful. 30 knots we got today, pretty easily. We've got full fuel, full water. And the handling, twin stern drives, what you'd expect really. Lovely and agile. Turns nice and tight. Nice bit of lean in there. All what you'd expect, but perfectly safe as well. It's never going to try and catch you out and skip or jump. It's just lovely controlled, but really great and agile. For when you're going through a following sea, you may not want to do this type of driving with your family on board, but when you're in a following sea, having this amount of agility is very useful. As for the helm station, really good setup in my opinion. The sheet doesn't move, it has a bolster, it doesn't slide, but you're nice and close to the helm. Everything falls to hand nice and easily. The view is very good. I haven't used the trim tabs once today, just a touch of leg trim to flatten her out, but really the running attitude is very good. And the big thing about this boat is you've got this side door here, which opens up. It's manual, but really quick and easy way not only to ventilate the helm station, but you can nip out onto the starboard side deck, which is larger than the port side decks, asymmetric, and you can easily jump out, take a line, get onto the decks and communicate with the crew. The size of the windows in the boat, apart from letting a lot of light in, it makes the view out very good from this helm. A lot of the time when you turn, especially to port on these hard-top sport cruisers, you completely lose your view on the port side, but because you have this huge extended window where they've cut down into the bulwark and the roof, which you can look through, when you turn hard to port, it's very easy just to peek up through the roof during the turn.
So the C330, the main difference over the S is the fact that your internal living area has moved up onto the main deck, and what that means is your cockpit and your saloon blend together perfectly, and Sealine has really aided that by including things like this bar here that helps you to sort of serve the cockpit area. You have a fridge down here outside as well, so you don't have to go inside. And then a big factor is of course this Ferretti style door which opens up like this and really means that you can use these two areas together perfectly. Moving in to the saloon, of course your galley is now up on deck here, nicely hidden away under this hinged lid. You've got all you'd expect, sink, hob, etc. Storage in cupboards opposite the dinette. And so really nice layout actually, and the fact that you can open it up so much means that you will just use them all together, and you can tent off the cockpit as well, so you can use it even if the weather isn't so good. Moving forward, the sunroof above the helm, it is an option. It's one that I think everybody will tick, because you also get glazing in the roof, so you can, even when the roof's shut, light still floods in above the helm, which is something you're going to want. And then you can really see the glass area either side. It's something that Sealine's really worked on. Looked a little bit dumpy in the initial renderings, but in the flesh, not only does it look good from the outside, but the way it works in here is absolutely amazing. And the side door we've mentioned, but again, great way of ventilating the helm, and the helm is great. The only thing I'd add is there isn't really anywhere to put a phone or a manual VHF or your sunglasses. They need to work in a fiddle or a cup holder in there somewhere. And then another benefit of the fact that the living space is now on the main deck is that the accommodation is so much bigger. So you have the same number of cabins as on the S. You've got 2 cabins, but they're better all round, much more space above you. There's way more space in the guest cabin. This is really quite compromised on the S. On the C, it's walk-in, loads of room at the end of the bed to stand and change, really good storage, really big double berth, big bit of glazing in there as well so that it's nice and bright, and the bathroom is larger as well. All in all, accommodation-wise, the C330 is the one to go for. Somewhere where the C does lose out slightly to the S is engine access. It's still pretty good. This hatch here lifts up on a ram. There's just 2 clips down there in the deck, and you can still get to everything okay. But on the S, it's the whole R section of the cockpit lifts up electronically and reveals this enormous space through which you can inspect the engines. However, at the bow, things are back in the C330's favour. Right, so when you're up to the bow, this is the port side deck is slightly narrower than the starboard one. But you can see that over the S, which is just a standard sort of sun pad arrangement, they've worked quite hard to make a bit more of the barrier on this boat. So you drop down into a little well, and there's really quite a large bench here. It's much bigger than you think it's going to be actually when it's all set up. Decent back on it. And when you're pootling up and down a river, for example, like we did on the Hamble today, that's a really nice place to sit. They are apparently working on a solution to make this a little bit more attractive because it looks a little bit clunky at the moment. But for a boat of this size, they've really made quite a lot out of this area, it has to be said. I was such a big fan of the S330, I was a little bit concerned would they have diluted it, especially the driving experience, turning it into the C330, but I have to say, this really does feel like the version to have. The change in the accommodation totally transforms the boat. It feels so usable, and you can scarcely believe really that it's the same hull as the S, yet you still get the driving experience. If anything, it's quieter, it's more pleasurable to cruise on board. The only thing is you're going to be paying £30,000 to £40,000 more probably for this over the S model. However, I think once you come on board, you'll probably see that as a justifiable expense.